Coming up on this episode of Tom Talks Rubbish.
Number one, drum roll, please, editor. What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and Happy New Year. When this video goes out, it will be the first day of 2025, guys. And to kick off the year, like we always do, for people that are new and may not know, we kick off the year talking about my 10 favourite interviews of the previous year. So this time, let's talk about my 10 favourite interviews of 2024. Let's do it, guys. Let's be honest, this was a hard year for me, guys, to do this. Because this was the year for me that I really feel like Tom Talks Rubbish found his voice within this space, found out the style of interviews I like, and things like that. So I really had trouble with this list. But let's get into it, guys.
Number 10.
Number 10 is my interview with the good man that is Greg Morgan, or Good Mic Work. I really enjoyed this interview, guys, because, to be honest, without being disrespectful, I didn't know a lot about Good Mic Work until I saw a viral video of his, I believe it was a short, where he runs down his favourite matches. And I just really liked his charisma and things like that. And what I found really cool about this interview was the fact that we was talking about the fact that he was one of the OGs, one of the unsung OGs of YouTube in its infancy. How he's seen YouTube change and things like that. And I really enjoyed the way that we just bounced off each other. This was the interview for me that I really found my voice. And a lot of people said, you've got a knack for interviewing. This was the interview for me, guys, where I thought, Tom Talks Rubbish is good. Like, Tom Talks Rubbish might actually be good at this. I still don't think I'm that good. But yeah, this was the interview.
I'm very happy with the amount of subscribers that I have, but I also feel like I should have about 3 times more, based on, but one cool thing about my subscribers is they've never, ever ticked down. They've always ticked up. I've had a few years of more growth than others, but I've never had my channel going in the downward direction ever. It's always gone up month by month. I had about a 2 or 3 year span. There was that big like adpocalypse that happened, and just like the algorithms just changed.
I think.
Yeah, that's when I noticed a big slowdown, because I was moving up pretty good. I mean, I was gaining a lot of subscribers, and then like everything stopped. And for a solid like 2 years there, I think I was gaining like 30 subscribers a month. It was not much. And a couple years went by, and then everything just kind of woke back up. And I don't know what goes into any of this. All I'm trying to do is just create content. So I'm at mercy. I'm at the algorithm's mercy or whatnot. And then it kind of woke back up, and then I've been climbing in the right direction again. But the one thing I have noticed about my channel is I've never had hit any sort of big skid. I feel like as I've grown and evolved, so has my subscriber count, so is my, so have my memberships, things like that. So it's kind of growing as I am.
Number 9.
Number 9 is my interview with the great man that is someone that's been on the channel many times, many times. He's now a good friend of mine. He's my mentor and things like that in this space. It's the great man that is Dom Smith from Give Me a Hole Yeah, Wrestle Spear, Sound Spear, and Screen Spear since we've recorded this. The reason I love this interview, guys, is this was the first interview that I ever recorded when I moved into this flat. As some of you may know, I moved out of my mum's place towards the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. And yeah, this was the first interview I recorded because to peel the curtain back, guys, pre-living at my mum's or pre-living here, we had interviews in the bank for almost 4 months. So while I was moving and things like that, I really didn't record. So this was the interview that helped me find my confidence again and be like, yeah, you are still good at this. You do still have a place in the wrestling sphere, for lack of a better word. And Dom Smith is just a great guy and has always been, like, as I said, guys, my mentor, and is just a stand-up human being.
I remember touring in my band, my old hardcore punk band, the Parasitic Twins. I remember touring in Germany with that band, and a guy had seen me on stage. This is a tiny venue, maybe like 80 people, maybe 100, maybe 80 to 120 people. And I came off stage, and he'd filmed the set and he checked with me he could show this set to his wife. His wife also had cerebral palsy. And he was like, I've never seen anything like what I just saw. My wife doesn't really believe that she can do anything. Or, you know, she doesn't really believe that she has any skills or anything to offer. And she's really down. You know, she's become, you know, really, really down. I'm going to show her this video of you playing drums and hope that helps. And I just wanted to say I've done that and thank you for playing. And like, to be honest, dude, like, and I know people say this, if they get hundreds of views on their videos instead of thousands or millions, but you know, people say, oh, well, I just want to create, I just want to be an artist, right? All right, fair enough. And you do that, you create anyway, do it anyway. If you get 100 views, if you get 1,000 views, do it anyway. But no one can take that experience away from me. No one can take the fact that I touched somebody enough for them to film a live set. And this is away from wrestling podcasting. This is away from Soundsphere magazine. This is me on stage performing with my tiny, grimy, hardcore punk band at a venue in Germany. Somebody came up to me and told me that it meant something, that they saw me play.
Number 8.
Number 8 is my interview with wrestling ring announcer and commentator Jordan Castle from Prestige Wrestling. For those of you that may not know who Jordan is, he is a rising star within the wrestling commentary and ring announcing world. He is the voice of Prestige Wrestling, and he calls the Oregon shows with Brian Zane of Wrestling with Regret, and he calls the Los Angeles shows with Jack Farmer, formerly of Wrestling Inc. Me and Jordan connected over our fandom and things like that, and it really we got into a very deep conversation, for those of you that may not have seen the interview, about burnout and the guilt that Jordan felt over feeling burnout, over living his dream. We also got to talking about how he felt about working with someone he considered a hero in Brian Zane and things like that, guys.
This is all I wanted to do since I was 8 years old. I've dreamt of this for so long. I've worked so hard to get here, and now I'm maybe resenting it isn't the right word, but now there's a part of me that's annoyed by it. Yeah, and I'm like tired with it, or I'm wishing it away. Like I felt almost guilty about that. But I realized twofold. A, both can be true. You can both love what you do and enjoy what you do and also feel worn down by it. Those things can coexist, even if they seem like they contradict each other. They can actually complement each other rather beautifully. And similarly, that's going to come with anything. Like the more and more you do something, the more and more that kind of luster wears off. And of course, it's not going to feel the same as it did the time I worked my first show, or I worked my first GCW show, or I worked my first Prestige show, whatever it is. Of course, it's going to feel different, and you're going to become accustomed to it. And that can be sad, and there can be sort of a period of mourning there. But just because something feels different doesn't mean that it's worse. And in many cases, I actually think it can be better.
Number 7.
Number 7 is my interview with Phil Lindsay from Grapsody on Fightful. For those of you, well, you all know who Grapsody is if you watch this, but I was really proud of this interview because I got to interview all 3 of the Grapsody boys during my early days of Tom's Flourish, and the more I look back now, I was really not proud of those interviews because I hadn't found my format and things like that. And I think this is something we'll talk about a lot in this video. This was an interview that I got to, for lack of a better word, redo, and sort of got to tell Phil Lindsay's story rather than shouting questions at him and things like that. But what was also interesting is since our departure, obviously they've had a since our last conversation, should I say, they've had a departure of the great man that is Will Washington to AEW. So that was really that really changed the podcast, and it was really interesting to talk to them about how they felt, how Phil Lindsay felt the podcast changed and things in between for Grapsody after Phil's departure.
I had always figured he was going to get some big offer from somewhere, and I mean, I wasn't totally shocked that he got the offer with AEW. I was very happy for him. I I didn't immediately jump to, okay, what does this mean for the podcast? My immediate thought was, oh, that's great for him. I think he's gonna smash it. I think he's gonna be great at that. Um, like the stuff afterwards of like, all right, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means for our podcast. I don't know if people are still as interested in listening to just me and Reg. I don't know what our dynamic is like with just the two of us. There was a lot of uncertainty with that.
Number 6.
Number 6 is my interview with Benville from Wrestling Life Online and Good Journeys with Second Mountain. I really enjoyed this interview for 2 reasons, guys. One, Ben was so open and things like that. But the other reason this interview will hold a special place for me is, like I said, Ben was so open and everything in between. We talked about burnout, things in between, all the stuff we usually talk about in these interviews. But that interview was also the final interview I ever recorded living at my mum's. So that interview almost talked about how the Dom Smith interview represented the start of a new era, but like Ben Fields was the end of an era. I really enjoy talking with Ben. I really like how he spoke to me about the branding of Wrestling Life, about how he had all the branding together, podcasting, how he wants to change how podcasts are perceived in the wrestling world, and everything in between.
Sure, you need to have worked out some good branding, and that's what I'd probably encourage people to do, is come up with a really good idea for your show and map it out. The other thing I'd encourage people to do, which I didn't do, but is a tip that other people have told me, is record 6 episodes before you launch. So, get a bank of content in before, because otherwise, as I have been, I've done this, I'd be much better with Wrestling Life. I'm about 3 months ahead there. But as I have been with Good Journeys, it's almost like you're scrambling constantly to get a new guest and you're always a bit under pressure. Whereas I think it's best when you can have time to allow each podcast to kind of germinate. The challenge there, of course, especially with something like wrestling, is if you're not careful, the content can date very quickly. So I've already recorded episodes in January, which will play out in March or April, which are talking about the Royal Rumble. So by the time they go out, there'll be elements that are out of date. But it's just the nature of the beast. I mean, it's there's only so many hours in a day, and I can't turn around a podcast, record a conversation, have it out within a couple of days. It's just not viable.
Number 5.
Number 5 is my interview with Alex from Just Alex or Alex's World. I really enjoyed this conversation because it went down a path of vulnerability and things in between, because Alex was very open about the fact that during his early YouTube career, he basically spoke negatively about things, even if he thought they were positive, because he thought that helped him get clicks. But then one day he woke up one day and realized that's not the person I want to be. I really enjoyed seeing Alex's vulnerable side and things like that, and how he's changed as a creator, and that has maybe helped him grow or not helped him grow, and everything in between, guys.
I did it because I wanted the attention, I wanted the clicks, I wanted the notoriety and the popularity. I had to take a step back just to answer your question and realize, okay, if I was to get that, I would have to keep being that avatar. Between you and me, Tom, I didn't like being that avatar.
Number 4.
Number 4 is my interview with Steve from Going in Raw, Stephen Larson, and Wrestle Juice and Friendo Club TV. I really enjoyed this conversation because, as many of you will know, the previous year I got to interview Larson from Stephen Larson, and I'd really been trying to get Steve back on the show, but it just wasn't the right time for a various amount of reasons. And I'm really happy with the conversation we managed to have, because we were able to talk about vulnerability, fandom, and things like that. And also Steve talked about a great sense of gratitude about, for lack of a better word, after their third man brother, the Enforcer, passed away, and how, as horrible as the Enforcer's death was, and Steve had also lost his father around that time, as horrible as those tragedies were, it really gave him a new perspective on just enjoy creating, just enjoy time with Larson, time with my family, and things like that, because you never know when it's gone. So I thought this was a beautiful conversation, guys.
From the moment we met him in 2017 or 2018 in Long Beach at a New Japan show, it was one of the first shows they did out here. You could just understand the warmth in this guy. And, you know, he was a towering person, but you could just tell he had an absolute heart of gold. And he was an amazing nerd. And he was the kind of guy who, it's so funny because we went back, I went back, I think on a stream that I did shortly after he passed, and watched his very first appearance with us when we asked him to be our third man. It was SummerSlam, I think 2020. The pandemic was fully on. And we were like, you know, we need something extra for the show because we're doing all this stuff remotely. We need somebody, because Larson was still taking notes at the time, which I don't know why we didn't get a proper note taker ages ago. But like, we couldn't engage as much as we wanted to because Larson was taking notes, and we're like, we need somebody to engage with the people a bit more. And we knew Enforcer would fit right in. There's always going to be people who are like, he ruins the chemistry. But those people quickly
he adds to it.
Yeah. We both understood that. And you know, anybody who knew what they were talking about understood that he was like a brother to us with our chemistry, you know, like he was a guy who would talk shit to us, who we would talk shit to, and we'd laugh so hard. You know, when I would do, because I think before that I had him doing like some Unsolved Mystery streams with me. And that's when I realized, oh, this could be really, really good. And so, you know, dude, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, anytime we hung out with them, anytime we hung out in person or on stream, it was just better. Like, we would be laughing. And I think that's one thing that he left us with after he passed with me and Larson. I sort of just mentioned it. And I don't know if it is losing somebody that you become that close with, and understanding this guy meant the world to us, and he brought us so much laughter and good times that, like, is like nothing. There's nothing really to be. There's nothing to be grumpy about. Like, we lost this guy, and so it's like we have this, and he left us with all the great memories and all the laughter, and losing him was such a hard thing.
Yeah.
It really was. That getting to do professional wrestling podcasting, it really puts things in perspective. It's like, we're lucky to be able to sit here and be best friends and do this podcast together. And we damn sure better appreciate it. And I think that's one reason, for speaking for me, I don't know if I can speak for Larson. I mean, I kind of feel it with him, but I feel like he really left us with that sense of appreciation for what we have. And we have to appreciate it because it can be gone just like that, you know, and we're left with some amazing memories. I mean, we did a 40-minute tribute video where we sort of like boiled down the best of, you know, the stuff we were laughing the most. And that only scratched the surface. I mean, there are so many recordings I have of him and I watching Unsolved Mysteries or whatever, where we would just be laughing so hard. And I mean, there's hours of clips that I could put together that I haven't even revisited, that I know exist. But man, yeah, it was that was a tough one. That was really, really hard for us.
Number
3 is my interview with, some people consider him a controversial figure within the wrestling media space, but JDM or JD from New York. As I was really sort of, I don't know, apprehensive about doing this interview, and just like, what JD am I going to get? Am I going to get bouncing off the walls JD? Am I going to get controversial JD that comes out of a load of controversial and sometimes inappropriate takes? But no, I was really proud because I really felt like we got to strip away the layers from JD, and we almost saw the man behind him and him be vulnerable about the fact that he's a cat dad. He enjoys spending time with his animals. He enjoys wrestling and stuff like that. He enjoys talking wrestling. If he was talking it into a bar, just his way of talking wrestling might not be for everyone. He's accepted that as a creator, but he's really happy with the loyal fan base that he has created.
There's a lot, man. The biggest misconception is, people tend to clip what I do in small pieces, and they don't really listen to the fleshed out opinion. You'll see a 60-second clip of me, a 2-minute clip of me, and it's conveniently disguised in, what that specific person wants to push as their narrative. Or JD's hateful. JD hates women's wrestling. JD's racist. JD is sexist, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about me. And I don't want to say that I'm misunderstood. Maybe I'm misunderstood. I don't know. A lot of people tend to think that what happens on the show is what I am and who I am in person. I'm not. Half of these people don't even know me.
Number
2 is my interview of Pete Quinnell, now formerly of Wrestle Talk since we recorded this, and the Pete Repeat. I really enjoyed this conversation with Pete because I reached out to him to promote his channel, the Pete Repeat, after his first video dropped and things like that. But I feel like since his departure from Wrestle Talk, fans have come over to that video to get some Pete in their lives, for lack of a better word. But also, you guys know that the question I ask to end every video is, what does my guest want to be remembered for? And what I thought was really cool is Pete said that it was that Pete Repeat video and things like that. And it was like, that's the piece of content we will now remember him for if he doesn't come back to do anything with content creation. So I think it's very cool that now that interview, is particularly with generic wrestling questions and some of Pete's answers with questions, it's like that piece of interview will live on. And if you want to know about Pete's wrestling fandom, even though he's not in the space as much anymore, that is how you know about it, for lack of a better word, and that can help you know about it, which I think is what the Thompson Forest brand is really about.
I think one of my blessing, curse, which one is it? I don't know. It could be both. One of the things is I'm very critical of myself, but I think I'm also very realistic with my criticism. So I know I'm very honest with myself. When something is bad, I know it's bad, and when something is good, I know it's good. And for me, I think I have a pretty good balance of telling myself and realizing when I've done something well and when I've done something poorly. So for me, over time, being able to see things I've done well, and for example, stuff like Monday Night War has been such a great cure for that, because people responded well to it, people were watching it, and people wanted to come specifically for me and Luke. Whereas a lot of the time, people would come to watch the shows that I'm on because the brand is well known, or the format is well known. Like it's a Wrestle Talk podcast or a Wrestle Talk news episode or whatever it may be. This was something that me and Luke had created, and people were coming because of me and Luke. And that's something that it's sounds very egotistical and narcissistic, but people coming to people coming to watch something that you make because you made it is great. And even since then, just hanging out with so many funny people. Sullivan Bo Brown is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And he has so many funny friends that he always brings in to do projects with him. So we get to hang out with just a bunch of comedians and really funny people all the time. And I think genuinely being around those people has helped me be more funny. So that when it comes to being on camera, I feel like I'm not out of place that much anymore. I feel like I'm actually providing something for the content. If I'm on a show like a No Holds Board, for example, when I'm surrounded by people and we're all playing a board game, I think I actually provide some sort of value. Whereas before, when my imposter syndrome was quite bad, I would have thought that we're here because Pete's here because we need to fill numbers. Whereas now it feels like we want Pete on the show because I think he's actually going to be good for it.
Number one, drum roll please, editor, is my interview with Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret. For those of you that are the OGs subscribers to this channel, you'll remember that I had Brian on during the early days of my channel, where Tom really hadn't developed a format and Tom really didn't know how to interview, for lack of a better phrase. And now I love this interview with Brian Zane. because I feel like we really dug into his fandom. Burnout. The fact that something Brian talked about was the exhaustion he felt from having to review everything for his channel and having to have takes for all of wrestling because of that. Why he stepped away from weekly reviews. His legacy. Burnout. Getting people back into wrestling and everything in between. And to be totally honest, guys, there was a point after I recorded this interview where I was like, this interview's perfect. I don't think I can top it. So I might stop. But to be honest, guys, I'm so glad I didn't. I really enjoyed this journey this year. Thank you for being a part of it. Much love and everything in between.
Yeah, burnout is a real threat. And I mean, I've definitely come close to like full on burnout in the past. And I've been coming up with ways to try to mitigate that over the years. Like I hired a writer, over the years, I've had a couple of different writers. I've got somebody who edits for me and helps the editing process. Hiring a team to help delegate some of that stuff and cutting back some of those videos and some of those obligations I put on myself really went a long way in continuing and preventing burnout. Also, one thing that I highly recommend for anyone aspiring wrestling content creators is to not have to like treat every show you watch like it's part of your job. Like, because I was watching like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, and I had to have takes for all of them. And I tell you what, that was exhausting.
And there you have it, guys. My 10 favourite interviews from 2024. Let's hope we can get even better ones in 2025. Let me know your favourite interviews from Tom Talks Rubbish in 2024 in the comments below. And also let me know who you would like to see on the channel in 2025. Thank you for the support, guys. Thank you for all checking out the videos and everything in between. But as always, guys, let's do the generic outro stuff. If you guys like this, make sure you like, share and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter or X, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.
Thanks for watching this Tom Talks Rubbish conversation. Before you go, please make sure you leave a like on the video, share it around and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube, as well as follow Tom Talks Rubbish on Twitter/X.